it's somewhat ironic that the educators, get to make all the decisions, and yet in every other part of our economy, it's the customers whose vote is the most important in making the decision. So why is education able to exist in a vacuum, which says that all the deciding votes always go to the providers, not to the customer? I believe that's going to change, and whether it changes in 5 years or 10 years, and to what it changes, what system. There's some experiments which have had some level of success, but not total success. For instance, the ability to do a massive open online collaboration. MOOCs are an interesting early step in the area of disruptive innovation, and yet there's not enough success yet to show that people stick with these programs, wait all the way through, can get a credential, wait all the way through and complete the courseware. So there's still a lot of early days experimentation going on, but I'm convinced we're going to see alternatives. So why do I say that? Because in the high-tech world, we're already seeing alternatives in terms of preparing people for the job skills that they're going to need for the best opportunities. And by this, I'm talking about incubators and accelerators. Incubators are places where people can come, brick and mortar locations, but they're recruited, and they have to be recruited. They can't just say, I'll show up. So they have to have certain interviewing skills and be able to pass that through that process successfully. And they get to work in different companies, and the companies may have small amounts of funding, but the ability for students to learn from each other, self-organized learning is a really untapped area, which I think is going to become increasingly important. And we're starting to see the early successes of that, in incubators. Accelerators are another version of incubators, and they tend to be a little further along. These tend to be companies that are working closely with venture capitalists who may be some of the source of their funding. They may have business partnerships with other companies that are outside of the accelerator. And so it's just a different stage and a different version of the incubator, but have many of the similar characteristics. In some ways, people use those words interchangeably, but you can also see slight differences between the two models. Either way, there is an opportunity for new ways of training people. If you go to Germany, where the intern system has been well institutionalized, where people go all the way back to the equivalent of high school, and you are on either one track or the other track. You're either on the track that says you're going to move into a blue-collar skills job, which is going to use trade school and internships to eventually qualify you. And Germany's been remarkably successful with that approach over decades. And people graduating out of that process are highly sought after, and they have great careers, and they make very good incomes. And then you have the other track where people go on to a full academic university experience, and that's a more traditional track that we're all familiar with. Well, it may be in the U.S., where we don't have that long history of internships, and where people make a choice in their high school curriculum which way they're going to go, academic or whether they're going to go into vocational path. In the U.S., we may well see changes in our system. So without focusing on the K-12 aspect of that point of view, just think of the higher education alternatives. With $1.2 trillion of outstanding student debt, with universities and colleges pricing themselves, I believe, out of the market, with technology alternatives becoming possible, and with early role models like incubators having tremendous success, it's inevitable that someone is going to start to figure out different alternatives in which people can learn. A lot of it self-organized learning, a lot of it collaborative learning, a lot of it using technology, some of it online, some of it physically where people show up. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities for major disruptive innovation. And I believe that just as healthcare is ripe for destructive or disruptive innovation, I believe that education is also very ripe for disruptive innovation.